had arranged to climb a snowy mountain with my husband of 7 years. His frail childhood sweetheart insisted on joining us. Later, halfway through our climb, his childhood sweetheart insisted on shouting out her feelings to the mountain. "Adrian, I love you." I was stunned. Firstly, because Adrian was my husband's name. Secondly, because she was so loud that she triggered an avalanche. After the avalanche, my husband, to save his little sweetheart, knocked me into the snow and heartlessly stripped off my ski jacket, leaving me to freeze to death on the snowy mountain, killing both me and my unborn child. Help! Help! The pure white snow pressed down, making it hard to breathe. I curled up, protecting my stomach, and weakly pleaded for help from Adrian, who had already climbed out. Adrian strode towards me, and just as he grasped my hand, a weak voice came from behind him. "Adrian, Adrian. Adrian, Adrian." He froze, his expression suddenly panicked. He abandoned me, buried in the snow, and rushed towards the source of the voice. I was barely alive, and my heart gradually sank. "Alara, give her your ski jacket." After an unknown amount of time, Adrian returned. I had finally managed to crawl out of the snow. The snow on my clothes hadn't even been brushed off properly. After being trapped under the snow for so long, my body was burning hot, my mind was fuzzy, and even lifting my eyelids was an effort. Adrian frowned impatiently. "I just touched it, your hands are clearly warm." "Alara, you're perfectly fine, give her the jacket." I finally snapped out of the absurdity of the situation. I looked at his imperious expression, and said in disbelief, "Adrian, I already told her the precautions before we set off. She didn't listen, why should I pay the price now?" Adrian pressed closer, the current him so unfamiliar that it frightened me. It was clearly Isla who insisted on coming. Before we left, I gave her a list. But she hadn't brought anything. Her bag was full of snacks and fireworks, as if she was going camping. "Oh, why are you so nervous? It's not like we're really going to be in danger." She pouted and fawned over Adrian. "Besides, even if there's an avalanche, you'll protect me, right?" Isla was Adrian's childhood sweetheart. In the past, I always felt that their relationship was unusually good, but Adrian reassured me that he only treated her like a younger sister. Time and time again I was fooled. Until now, when life and death hung in the balance, he chose this good sister, without hesitation between me and Isla. I retreated step by step in the snow, my fingers, numb with cold, clutched desperately at my collar, shaking my head in fear. "Do you want me to die, Adrian?" He was tall and strong. Even though I exercised regularly, I could never beat a grown man who was a whole head taller than me. The physiological fear and the throbbing pain from my heart plunged me into a despair worse than death. I originally wanted to tell him when we reached the summit. I was pregnant. For months. We were clearly going to have our own baby soon. He seemed to hesitate. But Isla's whimper behind him became his death knell. "Is her body comparable to yours?" Adrian's face was once again frosty, colder than the snow on the ground. "You're the professional, she's just a weak little girl. Take off your clothes and give them to her. Don't make me say it a second time." He reached out and grabbed my collar, trying to pull open my zipper. My eyes welled up with tears and my heart sank little by little. "Adrian, I'm pregnant, I'll die." Upon hearing this, his face softened a little, and his eyebrows furrowed with a hint of doubt. "You, Adrian, so cold." He glanced at Isla, who was huddled into a ball, shivering nonstop. The hint of softness in Adrian's brows disappeared. "Hurry up and take them off," he said sharply, his large hand gripping my wrist painfully. "Alara, don't be so selfish, you're even willing to lie about being pregnant just to save your own life." "I'm not lying." I almost screamed the words. Adrian pursed his lips, but the strength with which he gripped my collar didn't lessen by half. "So you really want to take off my clothes for her, is that right?" My heart was ashen, and I clutched my collar, retreating desperately. He was too strong. I had to use all my strength to lean back. "I'm really pregnant, Adrian." My voice trembled with tears, but I still tried my best to soothe his emotions. "Even if you don't do it for me, you should think about our child, right?" The cold wind blew on my face, but it wasn't as cold as my heart. "Stop talking nonsense, okay? Alara, you've never been able to get pregnant, can you stop lying?" He was so angry that he suddenly let go of my collar. I suddenly lost my strength, and the inertia caused me to lose my balance and fall heavily backwards, my tailbone slamming directly onto a large rock. Ah! I screamed, my body stiff with pain. Alara, why are you putting on such an act? Adrian's face was almost unbearably impatient. It's fine that you've always disliked Isla, but can't you make concessions at a time like this? Seeing that I wasn't moving, he simply reached out and tore open my clothes. The severe pain in my lower back spread throughout my body, rendering me unable to move and powerless to resist. I wanted to reach into my pocket and show him the pregnancy test, but I couldn't because I was losing strength and warmth so quickly. The ski jacket was stripped off my body. Watching my husband's back as he rushed towards another woman without hesitation, I closed my eyes in despair. The rescue helicopter arrived half an hour later. In those half an hour, Adrian held Isla in his arms like a precious treasure. Isla, don't sleep, wake up. You haven't heard my answer yet, you can't sleep? Do you hear me? I looked at Adrian in a daze. He looked up quickly, meeting my gaze. My lips moved, but before I could speak, he suddenly became agitated again. Isla is barely breathing. I'm doing this to keep her spirits up. Can you stop being so unreasonable? The answer he was referring to was probably Isla's Adrian. I love you shout to the snowy mountain earlier. With that, he turned away and didn't look at me again. Naturally, he didn't see the snow beneath me gradually turning red. My life was ebbing away little by little. They took out a fire starter and tinder from the first aid kit, and built a small fire next to them. I had argued with Adrian for a long time, and was some distance away from them. Adrian, why isn't Alara coming over to warm herself? Maybe she's angry with me. Isla's eyes suddenly turned red. It's all my fault, I'm so useless. Don't talk nonsense. Adrian hugged her a little tighter, then glanced at me and sneered. If she likes to throw a tantrum, let her. A selfish and self-centered person like her is lucky to be alive at all. I couldn't tell if the pain in my back was worse or if my heart was more painful. I couldn't imagine why I was being cursed with such vicious words by my husband when I was clearly just trying to survive. When the rescue helicopter arrived, I had only one breath left. Sir, we can only fit 6 more people on board. The pilot counted our numbers and looked at Adrian with some difficulty. There were exactly 7 of us. That meant that one person would definitely be left behind. My lower body was almost numb, and I leaned against the boulder with empty eyes. But Adrian only thought I was making a scene and sneered. Then leave her here. The pilot was taken aback and hesitated. You'll be back for another trip later, right? Adrian asked. That's essentially true, but... Getting the answer he wanted, Adrian withdrew his gaze. That's enough, let's go. It'll be a good lesson for her. The roar of the helicopter grew louder again. I watched them leave, using all my strength to finally take a piece of paper out of my pocket. It was a pregnancy test result. I tried to reach out towards that direction, my lips moving silently. Save. Save Adrian, save our child. As my life came to an end, my soul floated away lightly from my body. On the plane, Adrian sat in the cabin, holding the still trembling Isla. Adrian, will something happen to Alara? Seeing Adrian's agitation, Isla asked timidly. He didn't seem relieved to have escaped death, but his brows were still furrowed as he looked out the window muttering, "She'll be okay, she's so healthy and I'll be back soon." I smiled bitterly. No need, Adrian. No one will be waiting for your return anymore. As if guided, I returned home. Adrian, where's Alara? Why didn't she come back with you? The news on TV was reporting an avalanche. When my mother saw Adrian carrying Isla into the house, she was first stunned, but she couldn't care less about that. She was incredibly anxious. Don't know, probably took the next rescue plane back. Probably just being temperamental somewhere, for no reason. He went straight to the master bedroom and carefully placed Isla on the bed. She wanted to say something, but there was a sudden knock on the door. We all looked over. It was the butler, looking grave. Adrian frowned. What is it? Sir, the rescue team just called. They went to the snow mountain, but the radar didn't detect any heat signatures. My mother looked at him, murmuring, "What does no heat signature mean?" No one answered. Because everyone knew that only the dead had no heat signatures. My mother rushed towards Adrian again, urgently asking, Adrian, what does no heat signature mean? Did something happen to Alara? Why are you so anxious? She's probably just being temperamental and hiding again, Adrian sneered. It's not like it's the first time she's done this. Why are you all so worried? That's right. I had run away from home before because I was angry that he had stayed in Isla's gentle embrace because she said she was scared. But this time was different, Adrian. I looked at him sadly. I really was dead. They didn't tell my mother where I had gone. So my mother guarded the door for hours, not daring to leave for a moment. The door was knocked on, and she almost instantly opened it. Seeing the faces of the rescue workers, she looked behind them anxiously. My daughter, where's my daughter? The leader stepped aside with a sorrowful expression, revealing the person covered by a cloth on a stretcher behind him. She was completely stunned. We arrived as quickly as possible, but we're very sorry. My mother lunged towards the stretcher, tremblingly lifting the white cloth. After seeing my bloodless face, she seemed to be so overcome with grief that she couldn't speak, and collapsed to the ground without a word. My mother was an orphan. My father died early. Besides me, she had no other relatives. She called Adrian several times, but no one answered. Therefore, the whole process of claiming the body, cremation, and canceling the household registration after my death was desolately unbelievable. Where's Adrian? How can he not show up for something so important? Rowan stayed with my mother throughout the process with a dark face. Finally, after bringing back my ashes, he asked, suppressing his anger, perhaps he's busy. My mother didn't know the relationship between me and Adrian. Subconsciously trying to find excuses for him, she murmured, it's okay, darling, it's the same if Mom does these things. Rowan scoffed, seemingly considerate of my mother's feelings, and didn't say anything more. I smiled bitterly. It could only be said that he was my childhood friend, growing up together. Last year, I only indirectly asked him 2 questions about marriage, and he immediately smelled something was wrong. After handling everything, my mother returned to Adrian's house to pack my belongings. My mother was a woman of the old society. They had a rule that when a woman married into her husband's family, she became a member of his family. After death, she would naturally be buried from her husband's house. Holding my urn, she sighed. Darling, Mom will hold a proper funeral for you on the 7th day after your death, so that you won't be looked down upon by other ghosts down there. After a long while, there was no response. As if thinking of something, she gritted her teeth. Mom is incompetent. If you really have any grievances, after Mom sees you off properly, I'll give you justice, even if it costs me my life. Good girl, bear with it a little longer, okay? Her tears didn't stop along the way. She wiped her wet cheeks, and after drying them, the tears fell again. My heart was breaking watching her. The password for the house's front door had long been changed by Adrian. My mother didn't know Isla's birthday, so she rang the doorbell again and again. Adrian opened the door with a look of irritability. Seeing the urn and portrait in my mother's hands, he was suddenly startled. Are you crazy? Taking this kind of thing out to scare people? Isla was beside him, and her expression also changed drastically upon seeing this scene. Adrian, my daughter was frozen to death. Her clothes. Miss Isla took them, didn't she? My mother saw her, and her eyes suddenly turned red again. Her voice couldn't hide the sobs, and she handed the urn in her hand towards her. She was only in her 20s. Touching my urn, Isla retreated in fear. My mother was in extreme pain, with tears streaming down her face. She insisted on Isla giving her an explanation. Adrian's anger was ignited. He impatiently pushed my mother heavily, and the urn instantly fell to the ground. My bones and the remaining powder scattered all over the floor. My mother almost fainted from crying, and frantically knelt on the ground to scoop up my ashes with her hands. What are you doing? Adrian looked down condescendingly, watching my mother carefully collect my ashes. His face was terribly gloomy. His thin lips moved, but he couldn't say a word for a long time. I knelt beside my mother, my soul trembling with pain. Mother and daughter were connected at heart. I was clearly dead, but seeing her so helpless, my heart seemed to have died several more times. The surroundings were silent, leaving only my mother's suppressed and despairing sobs. Adrian's fist clenched at his side. but before he could speak, Isla suddenly cried miserably and sorrowfully. You all think I harmed her, so I might as well die. Isla. Adrian was shocked and quickly hugged her back. This has nothing to do with you, don't think so much, okay? Isla sobbed in his arms. After Adrian patiently comforted her, he slowly walked down the steps in front of the door. My mother was looking down at my ashes, carefully collecting them, not wanting to leave any behind. Adrian's foot was right next to one of my bones, and Isla's crying was like adding fuel to his anger. Just when my mother wanted to reach out and pick up the leg bone next to his foot, Adrian suddenly raised his foot and stepped on it heavily. With a click, that bone broke into several pieces in front of everyone. I gasped, looking at him in disbelief. Adrian gave a highly sarcastic and vicious smile. You two, mother and daughter, can say any lie to disgust people. My mother was rushed to the hospital. She was lying in the hospital bed receiving N4. After Adrian completed the procedures and paid the fees, he walked into the ward. I've already completed the fees and procedures for you. His expression was as arrogant and indifferent as ever. You better know that everything you and your daughter have is given to you by me. If you don't want to end up sleeping on the streets, tell your daughter to stop playing these tricks. What does this mean? My mother was stunned. You're saying Alara is lying to you? Otherwise, Adrian said expressionlessly. Isla has already shown it to me. Your daughter still has the leisure to have afternoon tea and post on Weibo. What else do you want to say? Post on Weibo. I was startled. When a person dies, it's like a lamp going out. My body has already been burned to ashes. How could there still be updates? How could that be? My mother was breathing rapidly, and her whole body started to tremble. I personally sent Alara to the crematorium. She. How could she still be having afternoon tea? My mother didn't finish her sentence. But I understood what she meant. Still pretending. Adrian sneered, his brow full of disgust. My mother struggled to get out of bed. Now any news about me would stimulate her. Adrian, Alara is your wife after all. How can you let someone impersonate her and deceive people? Didn't you say she's dead? I won't be husband and wife with a dead person. He scoffed. Go tell Alara if she doesn't roll back and apologize to me before tonight, we'll get divorced. But she can't come back. My mother sat on the bed dazed, but couldn't do anything but cry. The hospital room door was opened. Isla subconsciously avoided looking at my mother, and looked at Adrian shyly and expectantly. Adrian, it's time. The doctor is calling us. Adrian's eyes immediately warmed, and a gentle smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Okay, we'll go now. With that, he seemed too lazy to argue with my mother any further, carefully holding Isla as he turned to leave. Adrian. Alara's ashes. Where did you put Alara's ashes? My mother hurriedly tried to call him back, but she was too rushed. The 4-drip tubing caught on the bed rail, tripping her to the ground. My heart leaped, and I rushed to help her up. But my hand passed right through my mother's body again. In that instant, my heart turned to ashes. After my mother was helped back to bed by the medical staff, I was once again pulled back to Adrian by a strong force. Looking up at the sign that read obstetrics and gynecology, my brow furrowed, and a preposterous thought popped into my head. Then, Isla's voice immediately confirmed my guess. Adrian, what do you think we should name our baby? Isla snuggled against Adrian, her face filled with sweetness. Adrian tenderly tucked a stray hair behind her ear. If it's a girl, how about Clara? I stood there dumbfounded, suddenly understanding everything. So Adrian was so indifferent to me and the child in my belly because his beloved woman had already confessed her feelings and was pregnant. I suddenly laughed, my heart filled with sarcasm. In the midst of my thoughts, I don't know when my mother had come out of the ward again. Now, she was following closely behind them, glancing at the woman in his arms, a hint of resentment flashing in her eyes. After a long while, she forcibly suppressed it and slowly asked him, Adrian, where's Alara's urn? What urn? Adrian's face was filled with annoyance and anger. Martha, what on earth are you and your daughter doing? Everyone was watching, so Adrian didn't directly explode in anger, but lowered his voice and pulled my mother to a corner. My mother looked at him anxiously and hopefully. Adrian, Alara's. Haven't you made enough trouble? As if forced beyond his limits, he suddenly shouted at my mother. Then he sneered. What exactly does Alara want to get from me? Forcing you to put on this act to pressure me. No, it's not. My mother shook her head tearfully, trembling as she took out a crumpled pregnancy test from her pocket. How can you say that about her? Even though Alara is gone, at least she was pregnant with your child before she died. Adrian took the pregnancy test, his brow deeply furrowed. Before he could speak, Rowan rushed over. Auntie. He looked at my mother's haggard and aged face, and silently handed over a thin piece of paper, his voice hoarse. This is Alara's, the death certificate. The air suddenly stilled. Adrian, you beast, you don't deserve Alara being so good to you. Rowan suddenly glared at Adrian, took 2 steps forward, grabbed his collar. She was pregnant, didn't you know? It's so cold there, you wanted to leave her there, at least give her back her clothes. As soon as he spoke, Adrian violently pushed Rowan away. Why are you going crazy with them? Answer the question, Adrian. Rowan's eyes were red, and he looked at him with barely contained anger. Her body is so good, what's the big deal about lending out a piece of clothing? Faced with the question, Adrian was completely unrepentant, instinctively protecting Isla behind him. That's right, since I was in my early 20s, I liked to travel everywhere. Sometimes, to see a view, I could grit my teeth and walk for 5 or 6 hours straight. Although it was tiring, the feeling of taking different mountains and rivers into my eyes filled me with unparalleled satisfaction. In order to keep traveling, I always paid attention to my health and my daily life. My acquaintance with Adrian was also on a trip. At that time, he said he loved my free and carefree soul the most. But I never thought that this would ultimately become the reason he dragged me into hell. A piece of clothing? That's something that saves lives. You left a pregnant woman in the freezing cold. Adrian, do you have any humanity? Rowan roared at him relentlessly. My heart was numb, but I also felt some emotion. Pregnant woman? Adrian showed an extremely amusing expression. Don't you know that your Alara has had difficulty conceiving since her miscarriage 5 years ago? Besides, I haven't slept with her for 3 or 4 months. Whose child is it? Yours. My originally withered heart felt like it had been cleaved again. I was stunned. Clearly, I had never touched anyone else since I met him. My mother's eyes widened. There's no way Alara would do something like that. The next moment, Rowan unhesitatingly punched Adrian in the face. Isla gasped. Then he looked at him with disbelief and grabbed Adrian's collar, gritting his teeth and saying, word by word, "You don't deserve to be a human being." Adrian acted as if he hadn't heard, simply wiped the blood from the corner of his lips, turned to comfort Isla, and then sneered at Rowan dismissively. You should say that to your Alara. I'm telling you, even if she's really dead, she still owes Isla. Incorrigible. Rowan's face was full of disappointment, and he turned to help my mother up. Auntie, let's go. But Alara's ashes. As if suddenly remembering, he turned back a few steps, picked up my urn from a nearby chair, and walked in front of my mother. Don't worry, I already got it for you. Rowan turned to take one last look at Adrian. You'll regret this. Regret? Adrian repeated, still expressionless. I think you've just been blinded by that crazy woman. As the few people were deadlocked, the phone in his pocket dinged. Adrian paused, took out his phone, glanced at the message on it, and coldly slapped the phone onto Rowan's chest. Take a look for yourself. Rowan took the phone doubtfully, and I stepped forward as well. Isn't this the transaction record of your secondary bank card? Rowan frowned. The bank transaction record said deduction amount. 500,000. As if confirming his guess, Adrian crossed his arms and sneered. I said a long time ago that this woman is just full of lies. What's going on? Rowan frowned, asking the question that was also in my heart. After all, I was indeed completely dead. Besides, I had clearly returned this card to Adrian a long time ago. What's there not to understand? Isn't it just that she thought the money was too little? Adrian sneered. My mother and Rowan looked at each other, both seeing the absurdity in each other's eyes. The stalemate had lasted too long, and some patients were already gathering around to watch like it was a show. I don't know why. Even though it was midsummer, I felt particularly cold. What else do you have to say now? Adrian tilted his head to give Isla a comforting look, and then looked coldly at my mother. Daring to say anything for such a small amount of money. You mother and daughter are truly uniformly cheap. Are you crazy? That's your wife. Rowan suddenly shouted. Alara has followed you for so many years. She deserves some credit, Adrian. Did this woman put a spell on you? Shut up. Adrian's expression darkened by another 2 points. A protectiveness that I had never seen before. My mother and Rowan were filled with disappointment. Adrian, why don't you give Alara a call? Isla timidly tugged at Adrian's sleeve, like a rabbit trying to be understanding. I'm okay, as long as she can forgive you. Let her go to hell. He sneered, and after a long while, he looked at my mother again. Adrian slowly walked towards her. My mother hugged my urn and retreated warily. Mom is there. Really Alara's ashes inside. He stared at the wooden box for a long time, as if trying to stare 2 holes in it. My mother's nerves were tense, and she held the box even tighter. Even I faintly felt suffocated. After a long while, Adrian suddenly softened his tone and said softly, Has she really left? I haven't even had time to see her one last time. My mother was stunned, but still looked wary, not saying a word. Mom, please let me touch her again, okay? Adrian's eyes gradually reddened, and his whole person seemed to be filled with sadness. My mother was moved, and lowered her head to touch the wooden box like it was a treasure, just like she used to touch me. Perhaps it was because I had always told her good news and never worried her, and my love for Adrian was too full. For a moment, I even ignored Adrian's sudden change in attitude. Let me see her too. Under the public gaze, Adrian's expressionless face showed a bit of sorrow. I was wrong before, Mom. I haven't even seen her one last time. His tone was too sincere. In just a couple of sentences, his eyes were wet with tears. I was a bit stunned. If I hadn't really been betrayed, I would have really thought that the man in front of me loved me with all his life. My mother nodded blankly, and then smiled bitterly as she wiped away her tears. Okay, Alara loves you so much. She should be pleased in the afterlife if you are willing to hold her again. Isla and Rowan were stunned, as if they didn't understand why the situation had suddenly reversed so dramatically. Adrian took the wooden box, his distinct fingers groping on it for a long time, and the warmth and sadness on his face faded inch by inch. A bad feeling suddenly rose in my heart, and I shouted, Adrian! However, even with such a full-throated cry, no one could hear it. He suddenly walked to the window, stretched out his hand holding the urn, turned to look at my mother. Tell your daughter, if you want money, come back and ask for it yourself. Telling such lies only makes me feel disgusted. What are you doing? You're crazy. The 2 people in the room shouted loudly, and Rowan strode forward to stop him. But it was too late. The next second, Adrian loosened his grip. The wooden box, along with the porcelain urn inside, fell to the ground. Bone fragments scattered, and a light drizzle suddenly began to fall from the sky. The powder was soaked, and no matter how careful my mother was, it would be difficult to recover my ashes this time. In that instant, I felt like time had completely stopped. The evening of the 2nd day after my death, my husband of 7 years personally crushed my bones and scattered my ashes. 2 more days had passed since returning from the hospital. It was almost my 7th day after death, and the bones that had been rescued were placed in a smaller box. Because it rained so heavily that day, my bone powder was mixed with mud, and only a small portion of bone fragments could be salvaged. My mother insisted on placing the ash box on her bedside table. After these events, she had become somewhat deranged. No one could approach the box anymore, and sometimes she even had to hold it while sleeping to avoid nightmares. That day, people came and went, and after hearing my mother's experiences, they all showed expressions of pity. But my husband was completely unmoved. Until the 7th day after my death was approaching, he came home from socializing, completely drunk. Alara, get me some honey water. Adrian staggered slightly as he walked into the room, and subconsciously called out. Hearing the noise, Isla hurried over and supported his swaying body. Adrian Gidge, are you okay? Her little face was full of worry. Adrian frowned and looked at her for a long time. Perhaps because he was drunk, he asked, Isla, what are you doing here? Isla was taken aback. Before she could finish speaking, Adrian put his finger to his lips and made a shush gesture, then shouted into the room. Elara, why aren't you coming out? Because she's already dead. My mother, wearing pajamas and holding my ash box, didn't know when she had stood in the living room. Adrian's whole body shook, and a few traces of confusion arose on his drunken face, followed by a laugh. Lying. Lying again, damn it. With that, Adrian suddenly shook off Isla's hand and stumbled into the room. He fell headfirst onto the bed and sent me a voice message. Haven't you caused enough trouble? So many days. It's time to come back, right? Intoxication prevented Adrian from even completing a sentence coherently. But I would never instantly reply to his messages again. After waiting for more than 10 seconds, he frowned and sent another message. That fake ash of yours has already been poured out by me. Elara, don't think you can fool me. Seemingly annoyed by sending messages one by one, he simply initiated a video call. Even though I didn't answer, Adrian seemed to be hallucinating due to the alcohol and began to speak to the screen that only reflected his own face. I said you were fine. He smiled cryptically. Your body is so healthy. I just wanted to teach you a lesson. To stop you from always bullying Isla. How could you die from catching a little cold, right? If there were a third person present, they would definitely frown at the bizarre scene before them. Alone and without anyone around, this man talked to the screen by himself. No one answered him, and he didn't care. I floated above him, my eyes full of deathly stillness. It's not true, Adrian, I'm already dead. Still no one could hear me. Adrian fell fast asleep. I lingered in the room for a while, then turned to go find my mother. However, as the person on the bed slept, he subconsciously reached out beside him, only to find it empty. Adrian suddenly woke up. My departing figure paused. He sat on the bed, reacting for a while, then frowned, picked up his phone, and sent me another message. If you're not coming back, then don't ever come back. I couldn't help but chuckle. No. I'll never come back. The next day, Adrian's expression was indifferent, as if nothing had happened. He went straight to the dining table and sat down. My mother had been holding my ash box everywhere she went these days. At this time, she was also sitting at a corner of the dining table, looking at Adrian with a melancholic gaze as she hugged the box. Do you know what you did last night? Adrian frowned with a headache and didn't answer. Adrian Gitch. Isla walked to Adrian's side and called him softly, looking very aggrieved. My mother's face had no expression. Over the past few days her heart seemed to have died too. Seeing her like this, Adrian subconsciously softened his expression. Come eat breakfast, it's good for you and the baby. You two are so loving. Why didn't you divorce my daughter in the first place? In those aged eyes there was a flash of resentment as she trembled. Elara wasn't an unreasonable person. If you had made it clear from the beginning, she wouldn't have forced you. The man's phone rang again. He frowned and took out his phone. I subconsciously floated over to see the message content as well. Another bank deduction of 1,200,000. After a long silence, Adrian looked at my mother with a sneer. I thought you and Elara had a deep mother-daughter relationship. It turns out it's just SOSO. What do you mean? My mother was stunned. For a little money, you're willing to curse your own daughter to death, he smiled contemptuously. It's not like you love her that much. In the end, isn't it all about the money? My mother stood up abruptly in disbelief. What do you mean? How can you believe that, Elara? She? As she spoke the second half of the sentence, she covered her heart, as if she could no longer endure it, and collapsed back into her seat. Hearing this, Adrian suddenly stood up and walked into the room. Everyone present was stunned, but before long, he walked back to my mother with several neatly stacked bundles of banknotes in his hand. Before my mother could speak, he took a bundle from his arms and slammed it heavily onto my mother. Is it enough? My mother's face turned pale. In the past, I always told her good news and never bad, so in her eyes, her son-in-law must love her daughter to the extreme. She couldn't understand why she was being humiliated like this. Not enough, right? Adrian smiled again, picked up another bundle of money, and slammed it heavily in front of my mother again. Is it enough? My mother seemed to be nailed to the spot. Heavily slammed in front of my mother, and also, with extreme humiliation, slammed in my heart. Thinking back to the beginning, I didn't know about his family background. When I confessed, I thought he was a poor guy. He smiled and asked me, I can't afford a house or a car, and I can't even afford to eat sometimes. Do you still like me? I was a little surprised. After thinking for a long time, I looked at him with a sincere expression. Then I'll support you, I said a little shyly. Although I don't earn much besides saving a sum of money every month, it's still enough to feed one more person. If you don't mind, I'll support you. After a moment of silence, he chuckled softly. Then let's be together, Ilara. But you have to promise me one thing. I was in a daze. What? Change your personality in the future. He said, you don't even have 2 coins to rub together, so stop always thinking about giving to others, little philanthropist. The events of the past stabbed me like sharp knives. I didn't understand why a ghost could still feel pain, but I gritted my back teeth and looked at Adrian. After I married him, many people said that I had good fortune to marry into a wealthy family. But over the years, apart from the clothes and jewelry that Adrian bought for me directly, I had never been extravagant. How could he so lightly overturn all those years and his words back then? Adrian, I'll let you go in this life, please let my mother go too, I said with difficulty. But he naturally couldn't see me. He just slammed all the bundles of banknotes in his hand one by one with an expressionless face. Mom froze completely. Then, without any regard for my or Mom's feelings, he grabbed Isla's hand and walked out. In the silent restaurant, only Mom and I, a ghost, remained. After a long while, the woman nearing 60 seemed to finally come to her senses and burst into a miserable, heart-wrenching cry. What is going on here? I closed my eyes in despair. If I could do it all again, Adrian, I only wish I had never met you. After I died, I don't know why, I could only wander around my urn and near Adrian. So when Mom fell asleep, I floated back to Adrian's side. This life was too bitter. I just wanted to find a way to enter reincarnation as soon as possible. Under the scorching sun, I followed them to the wedding dress shop in a daze. In a while my belly will start to show. At the entrance of the wedding dress shop, Isla looked at Adrian with a still aggrieved and careful expression. Adrian, if you still have Ilara in your heart, I can back out. What are you talking about? Adrian frowned and retorted. Don't think nonsense. You know I've always loved only you. But you haven't divorced yet. The woman gave a miserable laugh. Adrian, I know I can't intrude on your years of affection. To have a wedding with you, even if it's not quite right, I'm content. Adrian's hand at his side suddenly clenched. Isla's tears fell silently, immediately sparking a few moments of pity in his eyes. He then embraced her as if she was a treasure and coaxed her. I'll bring up the divorce to her right away. Hearing this, Isla looked surprised and troubled. But, no buts, Adrian said firmly. You're pregnant. Your emotions are the most important right now, Watching Isla nestled happily in Adrian's arms, I gave a ridiculous sneer. How laughable. When I was losing sleep day and night, because of the baby in my stomach. When I was happily imagining our future together. We had been married for 7 years, but my husband was always thinking about how to ask for a divorce and embrace another woman. He couldn't even wait for my 7th-day memorial service before eagerly bringing someone else to try on wedding dresses. Empty-heartedly, I followed Adrian and Isla into the bridal shop. After roughly explaining her expectations and aesthetics, Isla was led away by an enthusiastic shop assistant. Adrian subconsciously followed, but his phone rang at the right moment. He paused, gave Isla an apologetic look, and then self-consciously took her bag for her. Perhaps because she and Adrian were in love, and the matter of replacing me as his wife was a foregone conclusion, Isla didn't mind this small interruption. She just smiled understandingly and turned to leave. Hello. Seeing her leave, Adrian turned and answered the phone. But before he could ask anything, Rowan's voice rushed out. What time is it, and you're still outside? What time? Hearing this, his brow furrowed. The other end of the phone took a deep breath. Even if you have no feelings for your wife, shouldn't you at least prepare for her 7th-day memorial service? Rowan. Like a trapped beast being provoked, the man suddenly roared. Do I need to remind you that she's my wife? Her life or death has nothing to do with you. The other end suddenly went silent. Adrian thought he had convinced the other party and said in a deep voice. Listen, Ilara didn't die at all. I just received the spending records for that supplementary card. That's not Alara at all. Rowan interrupted angrily. In all these years, when has Alara ever spent a lot of money on herself? All the major expenses are on you, aren't they? Adrian, she's been your wife for 7 years, and don't tell me you don't even know that. Yes, how could he not know? After Adrian gave me this supplementary card, I only spent money twice. These 2 purchases were once when Adrian had to attend a banquet and asked me to buy him an expensive brooch. The other time was when Isla took a fancy to a high-end dress and told me she was short on funds, begging me to pay for her first. Later, Adrian asked me why I never liked spending his money. I said shyly, "It's not like I married you for your money." At that time he looked into my eyes, remained silent for a long time, and then lightly smiled and hugged me, whispering, "Silly girl." As if pulled back to the past by Rowan's words, Adrian suddenly fell silent. People change, it's not surprising. After a long while, he only squeezed out such a sentence. As if already in despair, Rowan's voice was tired and hoarse. "I checked the flow of your supplementary card, and there's no clear spending at all. The recent expenses have all flowed into another account. Isn't it obvious, Adrian?" The other end of the phone suddenly laughed. "How long are you going to deceive yourself? I'm telling you the account holder is." Rowan was about to speak when Isla's gentle voice suddenly sounded. "Adrian, why does your face look so bad?" Adrian paused, hung up the phone, and raised his eyes to give a tired smile. "It's nothing." After the phone was hung up, Rowan never called again, as if extremely disappointed. After reassuring Isla, Adrian got up and left the bridal shop. At the quiet alleyway, the red glow of his fingertips flickered. He picked up his phone again, opened my chat window, and scrolled up through the chat history. It was almost 7 days, but the messages I sent him were still from before the skiing trip. He had a big argument with me because Isla insisted on coming along, and then he asked me for a list of precautions. Knowing that Isla's going was probably a foregone conclusion, I carefully compiled the precautions for 2 hours so she wouldn't delay our progress. After sending them to Adrian, his attitude noticeably softened. "She hasn't been feeling well lately. Be understanding, okay?" His voice in the voice message was somewhat coaxing, but to me, it was extremely grating. I didn't reply, and he continued. "Once we take her to the snow mountain this time, we'll spend our time together properly. Wherever you want to go, I'll accompany you, okay?" At that time, as if moved, I smiled slightly and replied, "Okay." In this marital relationship, I always seemed to have so much that I couldn't bear to let go of. For this reason, I lowered my bottom line time and time again, making excuses for him. Even though I was riddled with holes, I was still willing to give him another chance. I always thought I could exchange sincerity for sincerity, but I never thought that sincerity could change in an instant. Putting away my memories, Adrian had already called me a second time. The flickering sparks on his fingertips proclaimed his impatience. "Alara, come back and get a divorce." He sent me voice messages repeatedly, suppressing his emotions. In the past, I was always anxious because of his relationship with Isla. I regarded any message from Adrian as a treasure, afraid to be negligent. In 7 years of marriage, I would even dry my hands and reply to his messages while taking a shower. Apprehensive and careful, I never let his words fall to the ground. But this time, for 7 whole days, not only did I not take the initiative to contact him again, I didn't even reply to any of his messages. "What do you want? Name your price. Reply to my message, Alara." Adrian's eyes were dark. I couldn't understand the deep meaning in them. There was hatred, resentment, but more than that, there were some other emotions. The other end was still quiet, and Adrian's messages filled the entire chat window. I couldn't help but be stunned. In the past, this kind of situation usually only happened to me. No matter what I saw, I would babble and send him a lot, hoping for his reply. Even an ellipsis indicating speechlessness could make me happy for a long time. But this time, no matter how much he sent, I still didn't react. This situation of not getting a response gradually deepened Adrian's impatience and irritability. As if eagerly seeking an answer, he started calling me over and over again. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is not answering." "Sorry. The number you have dialed is switched off. Please try again later. He didn't know how many times he called until his phone battery ran out, and my phone was also completely turned off because it was out of power. Not giving up, Adrian's face completely darkened after making another call. Adrian, what's wrong with you today? Isla had already changed back into her clothes and walked to the alleyway with lightly furrowed brows and a disapproving expression. Adrian then snapped back to his senses, extinguished the spark on the cigarette butt, and turned around. He reassured her softly, I'm fine. As if the violent and obsessive person from just now had nothing to do with him. Isla didn't find a satisfactory wedding dress, so Adrian called a top designer. This made me remember the eve of our wedding when Isla rushed back to attend Adrian's wedding. That was the first time I saw Adrian so distant. He was absent-minded, and during the dinner, though he was clearly picking food for me, his gaze was elsewhere. I sat beside him, while all their friends around us exchanged knowing smiles. At that moment, I suddenly felt unprecedentedly embarrassed. It was as if they were the perfectly matched leading couple, and I was just a clown, there to highlight them. What do you think of this one? At the baby store, as if to make up for his absent-mindedness just now, Adrian was holding up a piece of infant clothing, eagerly asking Isla, You like this color so much, the baby in your belly will surely like it too. But these words didn't bring Isla joy. She was rooted to the spot. Her face was exceptionally awkward. Floating in the air, witnessing this scene, I even felt a sense of, you could call it, mockery arise in my heart. What's wrong? Adrian hesitated and looked at the infant clothing in his hand again, asking. Isla's face was pale. Adrian, the thing I dislike most is purple. Yes, Isla was the princess Adrian held in the palm of his hand, and seemingly to echo this innocence, she loved everything pink. In the past Adrian, unaware, bought her a light purple necklace, and she complained about it over and over. Purple is so tacky and old-fashioned, I won't wear it. At that time, she pouted and acted spoiled with Adrian, then saw me wearing a light purple t-shirt and smiled innocently. I didn't mean that, sister won't blame me, right? For so many years, Adrian hadn't bought anything purple again. It seemed that because Isla disliked it, he also despised the color. It was clearly a small matter, but to please Isla, he could deny everything from my aesthetic to my personality. Adrian, what's wrong with you today? Isla's voice was much softer, her small face filled with heartbreak. For her, this wasn't just a small matter. For so many years, Adrian had gone to great lengths to make her happy. Someone raised in a honeypot couldn't bear the slightest hardship. Adrian seemed to remember that Isla fundamentally disliked purple. He lowered his eyes, looking at the infant clothing in his hand, silent for a long time, unusually not explaining. Adrian. Isla stared blankly, tears already welling up in her eyes. What do you mean by not saying anything? Is she still in your heart? Is that it? Are you blaming me for going to the snow mountain with you guys that day? Isla's speech was fast, her expression eager to get an answer. Adrian seemed to be stabbed by something, his thin lips pressed into a straight line, and he abruptly put the infant clothing back, then looked at Isla. You're tired, don't overthink, okay? Isla's face was full of unwillingness, and she wanted to say something, but Adrian's phone vibration interrupted her. Adrian took out his phone, the screen displaying a message from Rowan. Not many words, just one sentence. If you still remember the feelings Alara invested in you for so many years, then get back here and see. Don't blame me for not reminding you. You won't have another chance. Isla also saw the content on the phone, her expression froze, and after a long while, she forced a smile at Adrian. You won't go, right? Adrian Gidge, you said you'd spend the day with me. Silence lingered for a long time. Then Adrian chuckled, and spoke softly to her. I'll go back and see what tricks this crazy woman still has. Isla was completely stunned, but this time Adrian unusually didn't indulge her, and hastily turned and left. Along the way, Adrian sped almost to the limit. All that could be heard was the engine's roar. He clearly wasn't speaking, but I felt like I could sense his anger. Alara, I'm warning you, if you still want to hold on to the position of Mrs. Adrian, you better kneel down and beg me properly as soon as I walk in. At the last few seconds of the red light, he picked up his phone and sent me a voice message. I smiled sadly. Adrian, I'm already dead. Why, even at this point, Are you still so stubborn? But he still wouldn't understand my feelings. The half-hour journey only took him 10 minutes. The car drifted into the villa gate, and before he even had time to park properly, he unfastened his seatbelt and walked into the house. When his hand was on the door, I saw him chuckle, probably certain that I would, as he said, kneel on the ground and beg for mercy, his eyes full of certainty. The door opened in response. Adrian stepped into the door, but the moment he looked up he was stunned again. The hall was filled with black and white silk, and wreaths to comfort the deceased. My mom and Rowan, along with the servants in the house, were praying for me with grief-stricken faces. Even so, my funeral was still desolate. Hearing the sound, they all turned back. My mom instinctively hugged my urn. Rowan strode forward. You still know to come back? Rowan sneered. I'm telling you. Before the words were finished, Adrian suddenly reddened his eyes, bypassed Rowan and tore off all the black and white silk on the wall. Are you crazy? My mom stepped forward in panic, but he pushed her heavily to the ground. Then another round of tearing, and the originally orderly morning hall instantly became a mess. You're a fucking animal. Rowan couldn't take it anymore, stepped forward, grabbed Adrian's collar, and gave him a heavy punch. Then, as if not enough to vent his anger, another fist landed. Adrian seemed to come back to his senses, his eyes full of ferocity, and he heavily returned a punch. Don't fight. My mom was anxious and shed tears again. She didn't dare to move Adrian, so she had to try to persuade Rowan. Rowan, Auntie knows you're a good boy. Just let Alara go in peace, okay? Hearing this, Rowan suddenly stopped his hand. Adrian's fist slammed into Rowan's face again, instantly drawing blood. Looking at the striking red, he seemed to regain his senses and stopped his hand, breathing heavily. What medicine did Alara give you to make you protect her so much that you even dare to tell this kind of lie with her? The blood on Rowan's face slowly flowed down, but he didn't seem to feel any pain and clumsily raised his hand to wipe it away. She didn't give me any medicine. I just know that even an animal wouldn't do such a thing, and you, Adrian, you're a fucking beast. Adrian, what's going on? With those words, Isla also came over. She stood outside the door, opening her mouth timidly. Hearing this, Rowan suddenly turned his head, looking at the woman with a Rakshasa-like hatred. Isla was so scared that she trembled, and then looked at Adrian aggrievedly. Adrian, if you have any madness, vent it on me. Why are you venting it on her? Adrian frowned and scolded. Hearing this, Rowan couldn't bear it any longer. It's this mistress of yours who killed your wife. Mr. Rowan, I've always known that you don't like me, but how can you slander people like this? Isla looked at Adrian with tears in her eyes, probably hoping that he would stage the usual angered for the beauty. But Rowan didn't give them the chance. He turned and took a stack of papers, throwing them heavily at Isla. Are these the bank statements that belong to you? The papers scattered all over the ground. Isla froze. Is this bank card number ending in 5785 familiar? Rowan asked. You shouldn't be unfamiliar with this account holder named Felix, right? Adrian's jawline was tight, and the look in his eyes towards Isla carried a hint of questioning for the first time. What's going on? What's going on? Rowan sneered, looking at Adrian absurdly. Can't you understand something so obvious? Your old mistress fucking swiped your card and framed Alara for it, Adrian. The sentence was almost screamed out. He then pulled up a chat history and slapped it on Adrian's chest. Look for yourself. I had someone check Alara's Weibo data. The IP addresses of those Weibo posts were inside this house. Looking at Isla's face turning white inch by inch, Adrian seemed to realize something and his expression also turned ashen. That's impossible, you're lying to me. He murmured for a long time, then seemed to think of something, and suddenly realized, she's hiding in this villa, right? Heh, how did I not think of it before? The most dangerous place is the... How long are you going to keep deceiving yourself? Rowan looked at him like an imbecile, grabbed Adrian's wrist and walked him outside. In front of the car door, Adrian finally remembered to ask him, where are we going? Rowan sneered. Aren't you adamant that Alara is fine? Then I'll make you open your dog eyes and see what the truth is. These two brothers drove the same way today. Rowan sped all the way, and soon stopped in front of the service hall. He got out of the car directly, walked to the passenger seat, and pulled Adrian out of the car. Along the way, although Adrian's face was still indifferent, there was already something loosening in his eyes. Therefore, when Rowan pulled him out of the car, he forgot to resist. There weren't many people at the service hall window today. The staff asked Rowan through the window what service he needed. "Help me check on someone, Alara, 29 years old." Rowan suppressed his emotions, trying to keep his voice calm. "She canceled her account last Thursday." "Alara? Is that the pregnant woman who passed away last week?" Another staff member chimed in. Adrian's face turned completely white. His lips trembled, and it took him a long time to find his voice. "What? What pregnant woman are you talking about?" The staff member frowned, trying to recall. "When this woman passed away, I heard her mother say she was pregnant." Having said that, the person in the window shook their head with deep regret. "She was so young, it's really a pity she's gone." But Adrian couldn't hear anything anymore. He staggered back a few steps before barely managing to steady himself, shaking his head repeatedly. "Impossible, that's impossible." "Are you her family?" Her mother left this pregnancy test report. As if remembering something, the staff member took a crumpled report from the drawer of their workstation and passed it through the window. Adrian snatched the report with a desperate expression, staring intently at the words on the paper. "She was pregnant, how is that possible?" Adrian was no longer the composed man he once was, his legs giving way, and he fell to the ground again. Then, as if grasping at a lifeline, he looked at Rowan. "She clearly had trouble conceiving, you know that, right? How could this be?" "So she knew she was pregnant but didn't rush to tell you?" Rowan laughed, tears falling down his cheeks. Alara knew it was hard for her to get pregnant, and was afraid that if the baby didn't make it, it would get your hopes up for nothing. So she specially waited a few months to prepare a surprise for you. "Do you know how many injections she had and how much medicine she took for this child?" Adrian was confused, his lips moving, but he didn't know what to say. Rowan lowered his eyes and looked at the report in his hand, scoffing. "Of course you don't know. Because your heart was completely focused on that woman who isn't worth a single hair on Alara's head." "Found it," the staff member said to the outside of the window. While checking, she had been listening to their argument, and after having had her fill of gossip, she couldn't help but give Adrian a look of disdain. "Your wife did cancel her account last Thursday. The death certificate and paperwork are all complete." Those words made Adrian feel as if his entire being had been hollowed out, and he collapsed to the ground. "Do you believe it now?" Rowan looked at him indifferently and said softly, "You killed her and your child with your own hands when she loved you the most." Adrian gasped for air, his face suffocatingly red. He looked around in a daze. After a long time, he suddenly stood up. He stumbled and ran outside. I was forced to follow behind him. On the sidewalk, Adrian raised his hand and flagged down a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. "To find my wife," Adrian said like a lost soul, leaning on the back of the driver's seat, the veins on his forehead bulging. "Please hurry, I need to find my wife." "What's wrong with you? How am I supposed to know where your wife is?" the driver said impatiently. "If you're not taking the cab, get out of here. Don't hold up my business." Adrian's consciousness seemed to have drifted away, making it difficult to understand the driver's words. He just kept hitting the seat, telling him to drive faster. "I have money, I'll give you money, okay?" Seeing that the driver still wasn't responding, he quickly took out his wallet. "That's enough." Rowan rushed over, apologized earnestly to the driver, and dragged the man out of the car. Adrian sat on the ground, looking at Rowan with a blank expression. "Rowan, where did Alara go?" "She's dead," Rowan said expressionlessly. "She's never coming back." When we returned to the villa, my mother was holding my urn and walking outside with the funeral personnel. Adrian opened the car door and staggered towards her like a drunk. My mother burst into tears and knelt on the ground with a thud, kowtowing to him. "Please let Alara rest in peace, just for the sake of her having loved you with all her heart for so many years. This old woman is begging you." My mother's cries echoed at the gate, and Adrian's tears flowed freely. He didn't know what to do with my mother, whether to help her up or not. So with another thud, he also knelt on the ground. "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." The man's pride and face were all reduced to dust at this moment. He cried as he kowtowed to my mother. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't want her to die. I've been with Alara for so many years. My heart isn't made of stone. How could I not love her? Adrian hunched over, banging his head hard on the ground, crying in anguish. I just thought she and Isla were fighting for my attention. Her body was so healthy, how could she die? Alara, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I'll die for you. Please come back, okay? The funeral personnel standing aside looked at each other, not understanding what was going on. After a while, someone started playing the Swona, the mournful music deafening, making the scene especially desolate and absurd. Isla had run away. After Adrian understood what she had done, he hated her to the bone. Rowan found out that the child in her belly wasn't Adrian's either. In the first winter after my burial, City experienced extreme weather. Adrian found Isla again on the edge of a cliff on a rainy day. She was very pregnant, and the child's father was afraid of being retaliated against by Adrian, so he had long cut off all contact with her. The rain poured down. She hugged her belly and looked at Adrian with fear, not caring that the rain was soaking her hair. Adrian, brother, what are you doing? She said. Isn't it a good thing that Alara, that obstacle, is gone between us? Shut up. Adrian roared and strode forward, grabbing Isla's neck like a chicken. Isla struggled and bit Adrian's arm hard. In pain, Adrian suddenly let go, and sirens sounded behind him. Seeing the scene, the local police shouted loudly, "Be careful! There's just been a landslide here." As soon as he spoke, the ground under Isla's feet loosened, and the expression on her face froze. Before anyone could react, she slipped and fell down with the collapsed earth. Adrian stepped forward instinctively, but in the rushing water, her figure could no longer be seen. Isla died, along with her child. Her parents cried and begged Adrian to give her a decent funeral, but Adrian directly blocked all of her family's contact information. 2 days later, Adrian went to many places. From the train where we first met, to the scenic spot where I confessed my love to him. His whole person was clearly alive, but he seemed to be dead. That night, he sat alone by the sea, facing the ebb and flow of the tide. The sea breeze howled, but he seemed completely unaware. He just held his phone and repeatedly played my voice recordings from when I was alive. Adrian, what do you want to eat tonight? Ribs, beef brisket, or shrimp and tofu? I saw stars and beautiful clouds. I think I love you so much. I know you're busy. You don't have to reply to me specifically. Don't worry, I like you no matter what. Honey, I want to give you a surprise, a big surprise. We're going to have. Forget it, I'll tell you in a couple of days. Adrian listened repeatedly, his body gradually hunching over, and he gradually began to sob. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. But my heart was already numb. He would never understand that even if everything has a lag, only love doesn't. City had a snowstorm. Adrian took his camera and went alone to the first snow mountain. He walked a long way without replenishing water or eating. He just kept his head down and moved forward, finally reaching the place where I had the accident. The snow that my blood had dyed red had long been covered by new snowflakes. Seeing the boulder again, Adrian knelt down as if he had lost all his strength. His face was pale, and he almost crawled to the boulder. The wind and snow were getting heavier. But he remained unmoved. He just sat there for a long time. As the snow covered his lower body, Adrian's eyes began to wander. He looked at the boulder and suddenly raised a smile. Alara, it's okay, you wear mine, I'll protect you. With that, the man reached out and unzipped the zipper on his chest. Inch by inch, he took off his coat. I looked down on all of this from above, feeling only absurdity and sorrow. Finally, he put the coat on the boulder, and fearing that the wind and snow would blow it away, he pulled it tight again. Alara, don't be afraid, I'll protect you. He murmured, the wind howled, and finally, the blizzard swallowed everything on the earth. I smiled self-deprecatingly, my obsession dissipated, and my figure finally slowly disappeared into the world. Adrian, in the next life, I hope you and I, life and death, we shall never meet again.